Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 29, Text 54. Sumanaha samadharmanam strinam sharana ashrame pushpa
सुमनः सं धर्मणां स्त्रीणां शरणे आश्रमे पुष्प
madhu gandhavat shudratamam kamya karma vipakajam kamam
पुष्प मधुगंधव्रत श्रुतमं काम्य कर्म विपाकजम्
Sukhalavam jay vayopasthyadi vichinvantam mithuni bhuyatat
सुखलवं जये औपसद्य आदि विचिन्तवत्तं मिथुनि भूयः
abhiniveshita manasam sadangiri kanasamagitavat
अभिनिविशेत मनसं षट् अंगी गणसाम गीतवत्
ati manohara vanitadi janalapesha atitaram ati pralobhita karanam
अति मनोहर वनीता आदि जन अलापेषु अतीतराम अति प्रलोभित कर्णम
agre vrika yuthavad atmana ayurharato horatrantan kalalavam
अग्रे वृक यूथ व्रत आत्मनम आयु हरतः अहरात्रांताने काललव
विशेषान् अभिगणय गृहेषु विहरन्तं पृष्ठत एव परोक्षम्
विशेषान् अविगय गहेषु विहंतम पृष्ठांत एव परोक्षमम्
अनुप्रवृतो लुब्धकक्रान्तोऽन्तःशरेण यम् इह परा विद्यते
अनुप्रवृत्तः लुब्धकः कृत अंतो अंत शरीरेण यम इहा परा विद्यते
तम् इमम् आत्मानम् अहोराजन् भिन्नहृदयं द्रष्टुम् अर्हसीति
तम इमम् आत्ममम् अहोराजन् भितृहृदयं दृष्टुम् अर्हसि इति
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My dear King, woman who is very attractive in the beginning, but in the end very disturbing, is exactly like the flower, which is attractive in the beginning and detestable at the end. With woman, the living entity is entangled with lusty desires, and he enjoys sex, just as one enjoys the aroma of a flower. Thus, he enjoys a life of sense gratification, from his tongue to his genitals. And in this way, the living entity considers himself very happy in family life. United with his wife, he always remains absorbed in such thoughts. He feels great pleasure in hearing the talks of his wife and children, which are like the sweet humming of bumblebees that collect honey from flower to flower. He forgets that before him is time, which is taking away his lifespan with the passing of day and night. He does not see the gradual diminishing of his life, nor does he care about the superintendent of death who is trying to kill him from behind. Just try to understand this. You are in a precarious position and are threatened from all sides. Materialistic. So Narad Muni is continuing to give good instruction to King Prācīnabarhi. Materialistic life means forgetting one's constitutional position as the eternal servant of Krishna. And this forgetfulness is especially enhanced in the Grihastha ashram. So, materialistic life. We are right now, we are in the body, we are in the material world. And the reason is because we have forgotten our loving relationship with Krishna. Each individual soul, each of us is individual soul, and each individual soul has a loving relationship with Krishna. That's our constitutional position. That's our original position. In the Grihastha ashram, a young man accepts a young wife who is very beautiful in the beginning. But in due course of time, after giving birth to many children and becoming older and older, she demands many things from the husband to maintain the entire family. At such a time, the wife becomes detestable to the very man who accepted her in her younger days. One becomes attached to the Grihastha ashram for two reasons only. The wife cooks palatable dishes for the satisfaction of her husband's tongue, and she gives him sexual pleasure at night. A person attached to the Grihastha ashram is always thinking of these two things, palatable food and sex enjoyment. The talks of the wife, which are enjoyed as a family recreation, and the talks of the children, both attract the living entity. Thus he forgets that he has to die someday and has to prepare for the next life if he wants to be put into a congenial body. So this is for us, who are in our family life. For the husband, it's the wife. For the wife, it's the husband. And then days pass by and we don't realize that our time in this body is getting less and lesser. The deer in the flower garden is an allegory used by the great sage Nārada to point out to the king that the king himself is similarly entrapped by such surroundings. Actually, everyone is surrounded by such a family life, which misleads one. The living entity thus forgets that he has to return home back to Godhead. So, our human life, we have a mission, a goal in this human body, that we need to go back home, back to Godhead. He simply becomes entangled in family life. Prahlad Maharaj has therefore hinted, Hitvatma patam graham andakopam, vanam gato yad dharim ashrayeta. Family life is considered a blind well, andakopam, into which a person falls and dies without help. So then what to do for us who are already in family life? What Lord Chaitanya says, we just remain wherever we are. Whatever is our position, we remain there and we start hearing about Krishna from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Because we cannot artificially change our position. No, artificial renunciation is just going to create havoc in our lives. So that's the reason Lord Chaitanya recommended this hearing and chanting in whatever position we are in for gradual purification. Family life is considered a blind well, andakupam, into which a person falls and dies without help. Prahlad Maharaj recommends that while one's senses are there and one is strong enough, he should abandon the Grihastha ashram and take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, going to the forest of Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya knew in this age of Kali we won't be able to go to the forest. How many of us in today's world will be actually able to go? That's why he said, stay wherever you are. Just begin hearing about Krishna and chanting the holy name. According to Vedic civilization, one has to give up family life at a certain age, the age of 50, take vanaprastha, and eventually remain alone as a sannyasi. That is the prescribed method of Vedic civilization, known as Varnashram Dharma. So what we can do is we can take up more services in the temple, we can cultivate more of our spiritual life, engage more time to devotional activities. That's what we can do in this age of Kali. So when one takes sannyas after enjoying family life, he pleases the Supreme Lord Vishnu. One has to understand one's position in family or worldly life. That is called intelligence. One should not remain always trapped in family life to satisfy his tongue and genitals in association with a wife. In such a way, one simply spoils his life. According to Vedic civilization, it is imperative to give up the family at a certain stage by force if necessary. Unfortunately, so-called followers of Vedic life do not give up their family even at the end of life unless they are forced by death. So what we are advised, stay at home and don't be too attached to the family matters. After a certain age, after the duties are finished, then more importance to be given to hearing and chanting. Unfortunately, so-called followers of Vedic life do not give up their family even at the end of life unless they are forced by death. There should be a thorough overhauling of the social system, and society should revert to the Vedic principles, that is, the four varnas and the four ashramas. So Prabhupada would say, if when one wants to take vanaprasth, they can come to the Krishna conscious temples and render service there. Because now in age of Kali, it's not practical to take vanaprasth. But one can go to the temple, offer the services, and in this way have a gradual cleansing process. Associate with the devotees there, hear and chant with the devotees in the temple, do some Shiva in the temple. In that way, one can take up vanaprasth. Satvam vachikshya mragache stitam atmanuntas.
Satvam vichiksha mrigacheštitam atmanah ant.
Chitam niyacha hridikarnadunim chitte.
Chittam niyachat karnidhunim chachite jahi.
Jahi anganashramam asattamayuthagatham.
Jahi angana ashramam asattam yutgatham.
Prinihi hamsa sharanam viramakramena.
Prinihi ham sharanam viram kramenah.
My dear king, just try to understand the allegorical position of the deer. Be fully conscious of yourself and give up the pleasure of hearing about promotion to heavenly planets by fruitive activity. Give up household life, which is full of sex, as well as stories about such things, and take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the mercy of the liberated souls. In this way, please give up your attraction for material existence. In one of his songs, Srila Narottam Das Thakur writes, Karma Kan, Gyan Kan, Kevala Vishera Bhanda, Amrita Baliya Ye Bakhaya, Nana Yoni Sada Fire, Kadarya Bhakshana Kare, Tara Janma Adapate Yaya. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking them to be nectar, must struggle very hard, life after life, in different types of bodies. Such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. So Narottam Das Thakur, he's written amazing bhajans. He is a great acharya in our line, and he's saying fruitive activity and mental speculation. Fruitive activity, we always saying, I'm going to do this. Why? So I can get this result with which I can enjoy. So we always wanting the fruits of our activity. Those are fruitive activity and mental speculation, that just by our imagination we are trying to understand the truth without hearing from the proper authority, without hearing from the scriptures. So Narottam Das Thakur is saying, whoever takes to these two activities will struggle very hard life after life. So people are generally enamored of the fruitive activities of worldly activity and mental speculation. That's how we are. We have desire. I'm going to do this. Why? So I can enjoy in this way. I'm going to do this, so I'll get this, and in this way I will enjoy. This is that's what we are doing. Or we mentally speculate, oh, the truth should be like this, or it must be like this, or it's my belief is this. They generally desire to be promoted to heavenly planets, merge into the existence of Brahman, or keep themselves in the midst of family life, enchanted by the pleasures of the tongue and genitals. So with fruitive activities, one desires to go heavenly planets so that we can enjoy more. And then by speculation, one tries to become one with God. That, all right, I'm not God now, but after liberation, I will become God. Or continue with family life. But the great sage Nārada clearly instructs King Bharishma not to remain his entire life in the Grahastha ashram. So all the scriptures, all the Vedas are telling us, come to devotional service, hear and chant. Lord Chaitanya stressed. He said, no need to change our social position. Remain where we are. Just start hearing and chanting. And that's why Srila Prabhupada would say, come to the temple, do some service in the temple. Being in the Grahastha ashram means being under the control of one's wife. One has to give up all this and put himself into the ashram of the Paramhams. That is, put himself under the control of the spiritual master. The Paramhams ashram is the ashram of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whom the spiritual master has taken shelter. The symptoms of the bona fide spiritual master are stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 3, Text 21. Now the question arises, who is a real guru? Who is a bona fide spiritual master? Whose instructions should we actually follow? Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu shreya uttamam shabde pareja nishnatam brahmani upashamashrayam. Any person who is seriously desirous of achieving real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a spiritual master is that he must have realized the conclusion of the scriptures by deliberation and arguments, and thus be able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken complete shelter of the Supreme Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, are to be understood as bona fide spiritual masters. So the pure devotee who's taken complete shelter of God has no material desire, only desire to love God and to bring souls like us, conditioned souls like us, to God, to bring us to our original position. So we need to find out such a bona fide spiritual master, take shelter of him by initiation, and serve him. Paramhamsa is one who has taken shelter of the Parabrahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So a pure devotee is called a Paramhams because he has taken shelter of the Parabrahman, because he has taken shelter of God. If one takes shelter of the Paramhams, spiritual master, gradually, through training and instruction, he will become detached from worldly life and ultimately return home back to Godhead. So who do we take shelter of? We have so many shelters. We say, I depend on so many things, we make up, depend on our own body, health, mental strength, finance, physical strength, family, society, country. But who should we actually take shelter of? Take shelter of Krishna. Take shelter of a pure devotee who has taken shelter of Krishna. And in this way, we can get detached from the material world. And we can go back home, back to Godhead. The particular mention of Anganashramam, Asattama Yuttha Gatham, is very interesting. The whole world is in the clutches of Maya, being controlled by a woman. Not only is one controlled by the woman, one is by the woman who is one's wife, but one is also controlled by so many sex literatures. That is the cause of one's being entangled in the material world. One cannot give up this abominable association through one's own effort. But if one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, who is a Paramhams, he will gradually be elevated to the platform of spiritual life. So we are bound up. Somebody is bound to the chair, tightly bound up to the chair. So how can we free ourselves? We need somebody who's free himself to open our ropes. Similarly, the pure devotee, he's liberated. He is not bound by the modes of material nature. He's liberated. So he can help us free also. He can help us for liberation, bring us to the spiritual life, bring us to the Brahman platform. Pleasing words of the Vedas that inspire one to elevate oneself to the heavenly planets or merge into the existence of the Supreme are for the less intelligent, who are described in Bhagavad Gita as Maya Yapahrata Jnana. So Vedas, vast majority of the Vedas speak of the rituals which one can perform, and the result of performing such rituals will be to go to heavenly planets and over there enjoy more, or to merge into the Supreme Lord, merge into the Brahma Jyoti. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna calls this Maya Yapraharata Jnana, those whose knowledge is taken away by the illusory energy. So what is real knowledge? Real knowledge means understanding the miserable condition of material life. One should take shelter of a bona fide, liberated soul, the spiritual master, and gradually elevate himself to the spiritual platform, and thus become detached from the material world. So not being depressed, but just understanding for a fact that this material world is a temporary place full of misery. Krishna says, Dukhalayama Shasvatam. In Bhagavad Gita, he says that. So it's not like kind of, condemning or being a matter of depression, but just having a very realistic view of the material world and then making a plan accordingly. So once we really understand, oh yeah, it is miserable, there's no happiness here, then one can take shelter of a pure devotee and gradually leave this material world, come on the spiritual platform, understand I'm not the body, I'm the soul. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Hamsa Sharana refers to the cottage in which saintly persons live. Generally, a saintly person lives in a remote place in the forest or in a humble cottage. However, we should note that the times have changed. It may be beneficial for a saintly person's own interest to go to the forest and live in a cottage. But if one becomes a preacher, especially in Western countries, he has to invite many classes of men who are accustomed to living in comfortable apartments. Therefore, in this age, a saintly person has to make proper arrangements to receive people and attract them to the message of Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is pointing out that in this modern society now, if all the pure devotees, they live in the cottage, they live in the forest, how will they preach? So those who are the preachers, Srila Prabhupada, he left Vrindavan for us at the age of 69. He could have stayed there comfortably, but he said no, he left for us to give us this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. And he made proper arrangements for everyone to come to the Krishna conscious temples. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, perhaps for the first time, introduced motor cars and palatial buildings for the residence of saintly persons just to attract the general public in big cities. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. And he would use motor cars so that more and more people could come to Krishna consciousness. The main fact is that one has to associate with a saintly person. Sadhu Sangha Sarva Shastra Kahe, Lava Matra Sadhu Sangha Sarva Siddhi Hai. So the sadhus are making an effort to give us their association. We have to make sure it's a real sadhu. That research work, that responsibility is on us. That we find out who's the real sadhu. The sadhu, guru, and shastra should say the same thing. The main fact is that one has, in this age, people are not going to search out a saint in the forest. So the saints and sages have to come to the big cities to make arrangements to receive the people in general who are accustomed to modern amenities of material life. Gradually, such persons will learn that palatial buildings or comfortable apartments are not at all necessary. The real necessity is to become free from material bondage in whatever way possible. So, real necessity to become free from material bondage in whatever way possible, because we are individual souls, but we are inside the body, so we are thinking we are the body. According to the orders of Srila Rupa Goswami, anasaktasya vishaya yatharham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyamuchyate. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.2.255. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he is explaining to us what is really renunciation. Because, we say, oh, I don't want this, give up this, give up opulence, give up home, give up everything, give up family, give up money. That is renunciation. But no, what Rupa Goswami is saying, real renunciation is that one is not attached, but one accepts everything that he can use in Krishna's service. Then that is real renunciation. When one understands, anyway, it does not belong to me. So what can I renounce? It's never mine in the first place. It belongs to Krishna. So let me engage it in Krishna's service. That is real renunciation. Because if we say, oh, I'm giving up this, I'm renouncing this, but then did it belong to us in the first place that we are saying we'll renounce? And real renunciation means real renunciation means giving it to the real owner. As Prabhupada would say, one man sees money on the road, picks it up, says, I'm going to enjoy myself with it, goes away. That's what we think. That's how we think, everything is for my enjoyment. Whatever I see is for my enjoyment. Another man comes, he sees money, he says, no, doesn't belong to me. I'm renounced. So doesn't touch the money, goes away. That is like like people who say, oh, I'm renouncing the world. I'll stop eating. I'll stop speaking. I'm going to go away. Then another man comes and he says, oh, there's money. It doesn't belong to me. So who does it belong to? And he takes the trouble to find out who's the owner, and he returns it to the owner. Then such a person is the real renunciate. That's the devotee. He understands everything belongs to God. So he uses everything in the service of God. So one should not be attached to material opulence, but material opulence may be accepted in the Krishna consciousness movement to facilitate the propagation of the movement. In other words, material opulence may be accepted as the vairagya, that is, for renunciation. So Prabhupada, when people would give donation, he would accept it. Why? Because then he could build temples, he could distribute books, he could give Krishna consciousness to more and more people, not for himself, but for us. That's how a pure devotee does. He uses everything for Krishna's service. Any comments, questions? Did you want to add anything?
No, clear, very clear.
Okay. Rajo Vachan.
Rajo Vachan.
Shrutam Anvikshitam Brahman.
Shrutam Anvikshitam Brahman.
Bhagavan Yad Abhashata.
Bhagwan Yad Abhashatah.
Netaj Jananti Upadhyaya.
Netajjananti Upadhyaya.
Kim na bruyur viduryati.
Kim na bhuryo vidoyati.
The king replied, My dear Brahmana, whatever you have said, I have heard with great attention. And considering all of it, I've come to the conclusion that the acharyas, teachers, who engaged me in furtive activity did not know this confidential knowledge. If they were aware of it, why did they not explain it to me? So now Prācīnabarhi is telling Nārada Muni. Actually, the so-called teachers or leaders of material society do not really know the goal of life. Because Prācīnabarhi is saying, hey, whatever you're telling me, the brahmanas and all the people who are coming, helping me to the sacrifices, they never told me all this. Why didn't they tell me? You know, if they knew about it, why did they not tell me? Because he's like, oh my God, what have I been doing? So what are the other brahmanas and others? Why didn't they let me know what were they doing? So Prabhupada is saying actually the so-called teachers or leaders of material society do not really know the goal of life. They are described in Bhagavad Gita as Maya ya pravrata jnana. They appear to be very learned scholars, but actually the influence of the illusory energy has taken away their knowledge. Real knowledge means searching out Krishna. Vedascha sarve aham eva vedya. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, Vedascha sarve aham eva vedya. Krishna says, by all the Vedas, I am to be known. That's the essence of all Vedas. Ved means knowledge. The end of knowledge is to come to the point of Krishna, to surrender to Krishna. Krishna himself is saying this in the Bhagavad Gita. We just have to accept it. All Vedic knowledge is meant for searching out Krishna because Krishna is the origin of everything. Janmadi asya yataha. Krishna is sarva karana karanam. He is Adi Purusham. He is Janmadi asya yataha, origin of everything. So all the Vedas are so vast. They are there for us to understand Krishna's position, that Krishna is God, to help us understand that I am not God, but Krishna is God. Each of us are thinking we are trying to imitate God, but the Vedas are teaching us, no, only Krishna is God. In Bhagavad Gita 10.2, Krishna says, Aham Adir Hi Devanam. I am the source of the demigods. Thus, Krishna is the origin and beginning of all demigods, including Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all others. So we may think, okay, for the ordinary living entities, Krishna is the source. But what about Lord Brahma? What about Lord Shiva, Durga Devi? The great personalities, Hanumanji, Ganesh, who's their origin? Krishna is the origin of everyone. He's in Bhagavad Gita, he's saying, I am the source of all the demigods. So Krishna is the origin of Brahmaji, Lord Shiva, Ganesh, of everyone. The Vedic ritualistic ceremonies are concerned with satisfying different demigods. But unless one is very advanced, he cannot understand that the original personality is Sri Krishna. Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. That's the reason it's so important to hear from a devotee, like Prācīnabarhi. He's saying, hey, I've wasted so much time. I did so many sacrifices. There's so many saintly people who came to do this sacrifice, but they never told me all this. So we can see the difference between hearing from a pure devotee and someone who's not a devotee. King Prācīnabarhi himself is pointing this out. He's hearing now from Narad Muni, so he's able to understand what is the purpose of life. After hearing the instructions of Narad, King Bharishman came to his senses. The real goal of life is to attain devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is real goal of life. Prema Pamartha Mahan. Engaging in pure devotional service, reviving our love for Krishna. The king therefore decided to reject the so-called priestly orders that simply engage their followers in the ritualistic ceremonies without giving effective instructions about the goal of life. So the king said, oh, then why did I even listen to these brahmanas who came and who were telling me to do all these rituals, do this puja, do this, do that? So he rejects that. At the present moment, the churches, temples, and mosques all over the world are not attracting people because foolish priests cannot elevate their followers to the platform of knowledge. Not being aware of the real goal of life, they simply keep their congregations in ignorance. So that's the reason the people who go to the temples are getting less and lesser because people want to understand. They need real knowledge. Consequently, those who are well educated have become uninterested in the ritualistic ceremonies. At the same time, they are not benefited with real knowledge. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore very important for the enlightenment of all classes. Following in the footsteps of Maharaj Bharishman, everyone should take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement and abandon the stereotyped ritualistic ceremonies that go under the garb of so many religions. You know, there's so many rituals which we do and we don't even know why we do them. Or why do we do? Oh, it's been in my family tradition for years and years. If we ask our elders, why do we do it? They don't know. Rituals simply for the sake of performing rituals. The Goswamis from the very beginning differed from the priestly class that was engaged in ritualistic ceremonies. Indeed, Srila Sanatan Goswami compiled his Hari Bhakti Vilas for the guidance of the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas, not caring for the lifeless activities of the priestly class, take to full Krishna consciousness and become perfect in this very life. So what we need to do is take up devotional service, not rituals. We need to take up hearing from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, hearing from the devotees, chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Worship the deity, offer prayers to the deity. That is needed, not rituals. So that is described in the previous verse as Paramhamsa Sharanam, taking shelter of the Paramhams, the liberated soul, and becoming successful in this life. So, follow everybody nowadays. We all follow. So many people we follow on social media. We say this is my, what we say, my hero or heroine. I want to be like them. So we follow them. But the real persons that we should follow are the pure devotees. Because they are liberated, and by following them, we can also become liberated. And we can make the success of this human life. So who are we following, Samshayotra tume vipra.
संशय अत्र तुमे विप्र
Sanchinas tatkrito mahan.
संचित्र तत्कृतो महान्
Rishayopi hi muyanti.
ऋषयो अपि हि मुह्यन्ति
Yatra nendriya vrittaya.
यत्र न इन्द्रियवृत्तयः.
My dear Brahmana, there are contradictions between your instructions and those of my spiritual teachers who engage me in fruitive activities. I can now understand the distinction between devotional service, knowledge, and renunciation. I had some doubts about them, but you have now very kindly dissipated all these doubts. I can now understand how even the great sages are bewildered by the real purpose of life. Of course, there is no question of sense gratification. King Barishman, I'm sorry. King Barishman was engaged in different types of sacrifice for elevation to the heavenly planets. People generally are attracted by these activities, and very rarely is a person attracted to devotional service, as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu confirms. Unless one is very, very fortunate, he does not take to devotional service. Brahmita, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva, Guru Krishna Prasade Paya Bhakti Lata Bija. Lord Chaitanya says that we souls are wandering about the universe. But one who's fortunate by the mercy of Guru and Krishna gets the seed of devotional service. So one who takes up devotional service is indeed very fortunate. Even the so-called learned scholars are bewildered by devotional service. So one may be very scholarly, one may have read the Vedas, but may not understand the goal of Vedas, may not understand the essence of Vedas. So we can see the devotees, why they work so hard. They want to give this knowledge to everyone. They want to begin everyone's devotional life. They take to the streets singing, chanting Hare Krishna, giving out books, just so that for our benefit, so that somehow or the other we can begin our devotional life. So the Vedic scholars, they are generally attracted to the rituals for sense gratification. In devotional service, there's no sense gratification, but only transcendental loving service to the Lord. You know, one may do some puja, say, oh, this is going to benefit me in this way. I'm going to read some passage from some Puran because it's going to benefit me in this way. But what is needed is actually devotional service, hearing and chanting for the pleasure of Krishna. That is needed. Consequently, so-called priests engaged in sense gratification do not very much like devotional service. The Brahmanas, the priests, have been against this Krishna consciousness movement since it began with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started this movement, the priestly class lodged complaints to the Qazi, the magistrate of the Mohammedan government. You know, when Lord Chaitanya, he was giving everybody Krishna consciousness. But the Brahmanas, they went to complain that time. The Muslims were ruling, they complained. The Brahmanas were complaining that, hey, how you're letting everyone chant? What's happening? Because they wanted to protect their own classes and, So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to lead a civil disobedience movement against the propaganda of the so-called followers of Vedic principles. These people are described as karma jada smartas, which indicates that they are priests engaged in ritualistic ceremonies. It is here stated that such people become bewildered. Rasyo apihi moyanti. To save oneself from the hands of these karma jada smartas, one should strictly follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one may belong to the priestly order and one may still be very bewildered about the goal of life. So Prabhupada is saying, follow what Krishna is saying. Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam raja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayashyami ma sucha. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Bhagavad Gita 1866. Because we may get fearful. Oh, this priest is telling me to do this ritual in this way. But Krishna says, you just abandon everything and surrender to me. And Krishna says, I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear. Karmani arabhate yena.
कर्माणि आरभते येन
Puman iha vihayatam
पुमान् इह विहायतम्
amutran yena dehena
अमुत्रान्येन देहेन
jushtani sayad ashnute.
जुष्टानि स यत् अश्नुते.
The results of whatever living entity does in this life are enjoyed in the next life. A person generally does not know how one body is linked with another body. How is it possible that one suffers or enjoys the results of activities in this body in yet another body in the next life? This is a question the king wants Narad Muni to answer. How may one have a human body in this life and not have a human body in the next? So Prācīnabarhi is saying, hey, what's going to happen? Like, what? You mean to say what I do, activity I do in this body, I have to suffer or enjoy the result of that activity in another body? This is what King Barishman is asking. Even great philosophers and scientists cannot account for the transfer of karma from one body to another. As we experience, every individual has an individual body, and one person's activities or one body's activities are not enjoyed or suffered by another body or another person. Yeah, so we are responsible for our own karma. You know, how we act, we have to either suffer or enjoy for that. Each of individually, individual. The question is how the activities of one body are suffered or enjoyed in the next. So the soul is the same. The soul is the same, but the body will be different. So let's hear what Nārada is saying. Iti Veda Vidam Vada
इति वेदां विदां वाद
Shruyate Tatra Tatraha
श्रूयते तत्र तत्रः
Karma Yat Kriyate Proktam
कर्म यत् क्रियते प्रोक्तान्
Paroksham Na Prakashate.
परोक्षं न प्रकाशते.
The expert followers of the Vedic conclusion say that one enjoys or suffers the results of his past activities. But practically it is seen that the body that performed the work in the last birth is already lost. So how is it possible to enjoy or suffer the reactions of that work in a different body? So atheists want evidence for the resultant actions of past activities. Therefore, they ask, where is the proof that I'm suffering and enjoying the resultant actions of past karma? They have no idea how the subtle body carries the results of the present body's actions down to the next gross body. So our karma, we carry our karma with us till the time we are in the material world through the subtle body. The present body may be finished grossly, but the subtle body is not finished. It carries the soul to the next body. So, till the time we are in the material world, the subtle body always is the same. What keeps changing is our this gross body, but the subtle body always remains with us, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Once we can give up the subtle body also, that is liberation. So actually the gross body is dependent on the subtle body. Therefore, the next gross body must suffer and enjoy according to the subtle body. So our mind, by our desires, we are already creating our future body. We have a desire to enjoy in a particular way. We have desire to enjoy particular activities. Then based on that, our subtle body, our mind is creating another body. The soul is carried by the subtle body continuously until liberated from gross material bondage. So the soul, we leave one body and the subtle body carries the soul to another gross body, another gross body, another gross body, till the time you're in the material world. Then when the soul gets liberated, then no more gross body, no more subtle body, only spiritual body. Nārada Vachan,
Nāraduvaca.
yene vārabhate karma,
येन एव भारते कर्मा
tene vāmutra tatpamam,
तेन एव अमुत्र तत्पुमाम्
bhunte hi avyavadhanena,
भुक्ते हि अव्यवधानेन
lingena manasa swayam.
लिंगेन मनसा स्वयम्.
The great sage Narad continued, the living entity acts in a gross body in this life. This body is forced to act by the subtle body, composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. After the gross body is lost, the subtle body is still there to enjoy or suffer. Thus, there is no change. The living entity has two kinds of body, the subtle body and the gross body. Actually, he enjoys through the subtle body, which is composed of mind, intelligence, and ego. The gross body is the instrumental outer covering. When the gross body is lost or when it dies, the root of the gross body, the subtle body of mind, intelligence, and ego, continues and brings about another gross body. Although the gross body apparently changes, the real root of the gross body is always there. The subtle body's activities, be they pious or impious, create another situation for the living entity to enjoy or suffer in the next gross body. So, based on our mind, intelligence, false ego, we are getting a gross body, one gross body to another, one gross body to another. We keep changing our gross bodies. The subtle body remains the same. Since modern scientists and philosophers are too materialistic, and since their knowledge is taken away by the illusory energy, they cannot explain how the gross body is changing. The materialistic philosopher Darwin has tried to study the changes of the gross body, but because he had no knowledge of either the subtle body or the soul, he could not clearly explain how the evolutionary process is going on. One may change the gross body, but he works in the subtle body. People cannot understand the activities of the subtle body. You know, the mind, the intelligence, it's working. And the false ego, of course, that we are thinking we are the body separate than Krishna. And consequently, they are bewildered as to how the actions of one gross body affect another gross body. The activities of the subtle body are also guided by the supersoul, as explained in Bhagavad Gita 15.15. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto matasmita jnanam apohanam cha. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So we are so proud of our knowledge. We are so proud that we can remember so many things. Krishna is saying he's the one who's giving us this. Krishna is saying, I'm the one who's giving you the knowledge. I'm the one who's giving you the remembrance. And I'm the one who's giving you the forgetfulness also. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Super Soul is always guiding the individual soul, the individual soul always knows how to act according to the reactions of his past karma. So the individual soul, that is us, the Super Soul, the Paramatma, God, He's directing us. He's guiding us. In other words, the Super Soul reminds him to act in such a way. So, we forget everything at night. We are as good as dead. We can't remember anything. Whatever is so important to us during the day is completely forgotten by us at night. Then in the morning, how do we remember it all? Paramatma reminds us. He's in our heart. He reminds us, oh, this was your past desire. This is what you have to do. So till the time we are in the same body, we keep remembering the activities of the body. We keep continuing. Then we give up this body, another body. We forget everything what was happening with that body. And then Paramatma reminds us, oh, you had this desire, so work in this way. You have this desire, so work in this way. Therefore, although there is apparently a change in the gross body, there is a continuation between the lives of an individual soul. Our consciousness continues. The consciousness is there. That's the reason it's so important for us to purify our consciousness till the time we are in this body. Because our consciousness is what's going to take us to another body. If we can revive our Krishna consciousness, we can go back home, back to Godhead. And so we are advised to hear continuously from Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Did you want to add anything? Comment, anything?
No, it is just like, again, how we forget and how we are
I know,
reminded.
right? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I know, right? We are being reminded every time, and yet we keep forgetting. And then the
yes.
scriptures, no, we will forget. So then again, they remind us,
I think
isn't it?
that's why Prabhupada has put the same thing again and again everywhere, because he knows that we are the people of Kali Yuga and we will forget,
Yeah,
right?
it's true. And then we say, oh, what is this? I know it. But knowing it,
Yeah.
but do we follow it then,
Yeah. Practically, do we put it in our life? That is really, really a thing.
Yeah, yeah. We say, okay, I know it. But then if we really know it, if we really understand it, then so that's why we need to repeatedly hear, because we are unable to follow it, no? So
Yeah.
repeatedly hear. Yeah. Mm.
Wow.
Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta